Hi, this is Seb from Cinema 5D, and in this video I want to give you some tips and insights about shooting, working with and grading drone footage. If you are completely new to drone shooting, I think discussing these topics can help you get a better feel for what's ahead of you. And if you're already shooting, then considering some of my techniques might help you think about affordable footage in a slightly different way. I just finished this small film I titled Running into the Air, which I shot on a DJI Inspire 1 drone. And there are just so many things I could take away from the process of creating this piece, mostly information that I didn't find elsewhere. So I thought it makes sense to share what I learned, and maybe it can help you, especially if you want to make more out of the aerial footage you record, something more cinematic, which many and also I am personally after. So why the DJI Inspire 1? Well, first of all, it's really the entry level if you want to create a somewhat professional looking drone footage. It can really achieve some of the things that other people achieve with bigger drones and with a whole crew of people. So I wanted to get the drone that works best for single operation or a crew of 2 people, and the Inspire 1 is really perfect for this because it is amazingly intelligent and very easy to use. And when you follow some basic rules, it's really stunning how you can fly with this thing, especially when you're working with drones for the first time like me. So this machine really blew me away. The power, the precision, the ergonomics of it for under $3,000 is actually just scary, and it's really, it feels like it's one generation ahead of the rest of the pack. Okay, so let's get started. In this first part I'm talking about shooting. And the first tip many people tell you, and I also will tell you, get a license to shoot or check out where you are allowed to shoot, because the laws are getting more and more strict about drones. One of the few places left in Europe where you can shoot is Switzerland. And when I shot this, there were very few rules. It was mostly about you're responsible for what you do. And really, when you've used the drone, you know that you don't want it in the hands of other people. It's dangerous, and there should be rules, really. Especially when you think about where this technology could be going. It's a robot, and it can seriously harm people when it falls from the sky. So learn how to use it in a safe environment first, and make sure you're allowed to fly. And very important, read the manuals. There are so many tutorials out there. There's so many pages that will describe how to prepare your drone, how to prepare yourself to be ready for shooting it. So check all this information out before you start flying. The Inspire 1 comes in a hardshell case, and this hardshell case can hold a second remote and 5 batteries. You have to get the second remote and the batteries extra. I had only 1 charger and 6 batteries, so what I did was I spent each night charging these one by one. And I'd say when you have some practice, you need about 1 battery for 1 or 2 locations. Each battery gives you about 15 minutes of flying time. So if you are serious about this, get at least 1 second charger and more batteries. The drone itself is set up in 2 minutes, so really you can be very, very fast. You connect the smartphone to the remote, you mount the camera that comes with the drone, you attach the wings, you start up and you fly. And the drone then hovers 2 meters above ground within seconds. And if you've got everything set up correctly, which you really should, then the drone will not move until you tell it to, because it has 2 additional cameras below that help lock it in position, even if it's not connected to any GPS. The whole technology in this drone makes flying rather easy once you figure out how to maneuver it. But the real problem that I found is seeing the drone. So this is something that I'm missing on other tutorials. The human eye can see in 3-dimensional space up to a certain distance, but you're controlling the drone from far away, so it's often impossible to tell if the tree behind it is 20 meters away or is right behind the drone, and if you're almost crashing it. And a little trick I used was to position myself right behind the drone and have the flying vector point exactly away from myself and be in line with my point of view. So this was how I achieved the shots when I flew really, really close to buildings, trees and other things without crashing the drone. And my number one tip is, if you are uncertain, then just don't do it. It's likely you will crash the drone, and it's certainly not worth it to crash the drone. It's better to get a different perspective, a different angle on your drone, and just make sure you're flying safely. About flying close to things, I think flying close to things is really what makes shots special and adds depth. In other tutorials, people say fly high up to make your shot cinematic, but I think, at least for me, that's really the wrong approach. What is cinematic, I think, is really the difference between close objects in different spaces. It's this, it's rapid changes of perspective. It's getting close to the ground, close to objects. Really, if you want something cinematic, consider passing your subjects closely. It creates a sense of speed, a sense of three-dimensional space, and just fills your image with information that lets it become alive, which I believe cinematic is all about. The next point is lighting. Very important for cinematic shots, and something, of course, any real cinematographer will always consider lighting. You can really, more than in any other shots on the ground, think of the sun as your light source. Of course, there's no other way you can light your scene, probably. And you can position your light source by your flying angle, and also by, of course, being patient, waiting for the right time of day, the right angle of the sun, and also for the right weather. And this is why I spent 1 week in Switzerland, because I wanted to have the chance on great weather. I wanted to get the right weather conditions. So if the sun is coming from the front, you have a backlight. If the sun is behind you, you have a fill light. If the sun is behind the clouds, you have a softbox. And before flying, just consider your environment and the lighting you have in your scene, and how you what emotion you want to convey with your lighting. After the rain is the perfect time to shoot. So this was after a full day of rain. The sun was setting and the mist was rising from the trees. So this was perfect for me. Cinematic, atmospheric. This is the kind of lighting that I was waiting for to get these shots. I wanted to get something really dramatic for this film. I wanted something that fits the music, that really pushes it. So a lot of contrast. Filming towards the sun, having the sun as my backlight, not my fill light. And of course you might be after a different look, a different emotion. And I think it's important to really think about that first and then start shooting. So think about, what do you want to convey? Which way of lighting will convey that emotion, and then start shooting. You know, this was for me a test, so I just wanted to try as much as possible, and I ended up doing more and more of these dramatic shots. So this was a great way to play with the drone, to get familiar with it, and an attempt to get some cinematic shots for my show reel. But if you're shooting for a project, really think about what you want to convey first. This should define really the way you light the scene, and also the way you fly, of course, the movement. Of course, talking about contrast, you will notice my video is very dark, and actually it's much darker than I intended it to be, because not because of the time of the day, but because of the limitations of the camera built into the DJI Inspire 1. But I will talk more about that in part 2 of the series. And one of my last tips for shooting is, don't stop a shot. And what I mean with that is, I had several shots where I really felt like 10 years ago, when I was rather new to shooting. You try something, you don't like it so much, and then you try something else, and in post you think, oh no, if only I had stayed on this shot a few seconds longer, you know. It was actually not such a bad shot. And you know, when you start, at some point when you edit your own footage, you learn this 10-second rule, like stay on a shot for 10 seconds and then stop. But the same thing is also true for drone shooting, and I had to relearn that. So I know I want to try 10 times until I really get the shot right, but I shouldn't stop a shot before it's finished. So this was one of my biggest takeaways coming to drone shooting. And in that sense, I think it's also really important to try things and be bold when it comes to movement. And really being creative means trying things out and finding something new rather than inventing something new. This is what I believe. So whatever I do, I try to get some time, I get some additional space and freedom to try out different things, try out new things. So my last tip for drone shooting in terms of movement is try different different movements, different angles, things you haven't seen before. And if you find something you like, do it until you get it on film nicely. In part 2 and 3 of this series, I'll talk about working with drone camera footage and also its limitations, especially of affordable drone cameras, and then also grading and manipulating the image to get the best results out of them. If you enjoyed this video and if it helped you, please like us on Facebook, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I see you in part 2.